All right. Ready to dive into something that might just flip your perspective? Today we're talking about risk.
Risk, huh?
Yeah, but specifically this idea that playing it safe might actually be the riskiest move you can make in this crazy, fast-changing world.
That's interesting.
So we're going to be looking at Randy Gage's audiobook, Risky is the New Safe.
Okay.
And I got to admit, when I first saw that title coming from a guy known as, a prosperity and success guru,
Yeah.
I was a little thrown, right? You think prosperity, success, you think like tips on investing wisely, maybe some motivational stuff about reaching goals.
Right.
But risky, that kind of sparked my curiosity.
And I think that's exactly what Gage is going for.
Yeah.
Yeah, because his whole premise is that we've been conditioned to think about risk in a very limited way.
So instead of focusing on like the obvious external dangers like financial ruin or physical harm, Gage goes deeper.
Exactly.
He defines risk as missing the mark of your full potential.
And that's such a powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just about avoiding negative outcomes. It's about realizing that playing it safe, that can actually prevent us from achieving and extraordinary things we're capable of.
Okay, so let's say I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, all right, that's interesting, but what's my mark?
Right.
How do I even know what my full potential is?
Yeah.
What would Gage say to that?
He would probably ask you to think about a time when you felt truly alive, engaged, really in your element. Maybe it was pursuing a hobby, using a particular skill, or connecting with people in a certain way.
Yeah,
Those moments, they often hold clues to our unique talents and passions.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
But even if I can identify those things, there's still that voice in my head whispering, what if I fail? What if I take a risk and it doesn't work out?
And that's where Gage's whole argument about the changing world comes in.
Okay.
He paints a pretty stark picture. Technology eliminating jobs, the possibility of humans being replaced by, get this, animals or clones,
Well,
and even the potential for a new world order.
wow. Okay, that definitely gets your attention.
Exactly. And his point is that in a world where the ground is constantly shifting beneath our feet,
Yeah.
clinging to the status quo is no longer a viable option. In fact, it might be the riskiest thing you can do.
So he's basically saying, wake up. The world is changing whether you like it or not, so you might as well embrace the uncertainty and make bold moves.
Precisely. And that's where the concept of sameness versus difference comes in.
Okay.
He argues that sameness leads to comfort, but also to stagnation.
Right.
It's in embracing our differences, our unique perspectives and talents, that we find the greatest opportunities.
So in a world full of disruption, standing out from the crowd becomes more crucial than ever.
Exactly. Think about it. In a sea of sameness, it's the outliers,
Yeah.
the ones who dare to be different, who are most likely to get noticed, to create something truly impactful.
Okay, so how do we actually do that? How do we move from playing it safe to taking calculated risks and leveraging our unique strengths?
Well, that's where the concept of leverage comes into play,
Okay.
which is a cornerstone of Gage's philosophy.
Leverage. Most people probably think of leverage in a financial sense, like using borrowed money to make investments. But Gage seems to be talking about something broader.
He is. He explains leverage in both the traditional financial sense and in a much wider context.
Okay.
It's about finding ways to amplify your efforts,
Work.
to create systems that work for you even when you're not actively working.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Can you give me an example? Something concrete that illustrates this idea of leverage.
Sure. He talks about Jimmy Buffett, for instance.
Okay.
He recorded Margaritaville once, but it's been generating income for him for decades.
Ah, I see. So it's not just about trading time for money.
Right.
It's about creating something that continues to pay off over time.
Exactly. And another great example he uses is J.K. Rowling.
Oh, yeah.
Her wealth comes from the intellectual property she created,
Yeah.
the Harry Potter books.
So it's about leveraging your creativity, your knowledge, your skills to create something that has lasting value.
That's a great way to put it, and those are just two examples.
Right.
The possibilities for leverage are really limitless when you start to think outside the box.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to risk. It's almost like instead of fearing the unknown,
Yeah.
we should be embracing it because it's in those uncharted territories where the real magic happens.
That's exactly the mindset Gage is trying to cultivate.
We're talking about leverage, but I'm realizing this is all connected to something bigger, right?
Yeah, it is.
Gage calls it prosperity consciousness.
Right.
What exactly does he mean by that?
Well, it's not just a concept. It's really a complete shift in how you view the world and your place in it.
Huh?
Prosperity consciousness is about seeing abundance
Okay.
instead of scarcity.
Yeah.
focusing on possibilities, not limitations.
Hmm.
It's about welcoming challenges as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to avoid.
And he actually shares a really personal story in the audiobook about his own journey
Right.
out of what he calls poverty consciousness.
Yeah.
He was struggling financially and found himself just incredibly cynical, always finding reasons why any business venture wouldn't work.
And that cynicism, Gage argues, is a symptom of poverty consciousness.
Okay.
It's that feeling of not enough. Not
Right.
enough success, not enough resources, not enough to go around.
Right, like scarcity.
Exactly. So you hold tight to what little you think you have.
And it's so relatable, isn't it? I know I've been there,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it comes to creative projects. It's
Yeah.
like my brain throws up all these reasons why
Yeah.
something won't succeed before I even start.
Hmm.
But Gage makes a distinction between that kind of cynicism and healthy skepticism.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah, healthy skepticism is about evaluating things objectively,
Okay.
weighing pros and cons.
Mhm.
It's essential for making informed decisions.
Right.
But cynicism, that's a creativity killer.
Yeah.
It shuts down possibilities before they even have a chance to take root.
So how do we shift out of that cynical mindset and into a more abundant one? Because Gage's point about millionaires was really striking to me. They don't view risk the same way most people do.
Right. For them, playing it safe, the risk.
Mm.
Blending in, not pushing boundaries, accepting mediocrity, that's what truly puts you at risk in their eyes.
It's almost like they've flipped the script entirely. They're not afraid of failure. They're afraid of not even trying.
Exactly. And that brings us back to Gage's definition of risk as missing the mark of your potential.
Right.
For these successful individuals, the bigger risk is not taking the chance to achieve something truly extraordinary.
So it's not about becoming reckless or just throwing caution to the wind. It's
Yeah.
about recognizing where our fear might be holding us back from something truly great.
That's a great way to put it. And it requires us to be honest with ourselves about the assumptions we're holding on to,
Yeah.
the beliefs that might be limiting our potential without us even realizing it.
Gage even goes as far as to say that we should be contrarians, challenging the status quo, looking for opportunities where others see only problems.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bold statement. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's certainly not for everyone,
Right.
but there's a lot of truth to the idea that some of the most successful businesses and innovations were born from ideas that initially seemed crazy or impossible.
Makes you wonder, what opportunities are we missing out on because we're too afraid to challenge conventional wisdom?
Exactly. And that's why Gage encourages us to think laterally,
Okay.
to question assumptions, and to be willing to go against the grain.
Yeah.
Because in a world that's changing so rapidly, clinging to the familiar can actually be the riskiest path we can take.
So how do we practically apply this to our lives? What's the first step someone can take to start embracing this more, risky mindset?
It might be helpful to start by identifying areas where you're playing it too safe.
Okay.
What are you avoiding out of fear? What dreams or ambitions have you been putting on hold?
And maybe even asking ourselves, what's the worst that could happen?
Right.
Because often the consequences of failure are far less dire than we imagine.
Absolutely. And even if things don't go exactly as planned,
Yeah.
the experience of taking a risk, of stepping outside your comfort zone,
Mm-hmm.
that's invaluable in itself.
It builds resilience, teaches us new skills,
Yeah,
helps us clarify what truly matters to us.
exactly. And, Gage argues that this willingness to embrace risk is not just about achieving personal success.
Oh,
It's also about contributing to the world in a meaningful way.
that's an interesting point. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
He believes that by playing it safe, by sticking to the well-trodden path, we're not only limiting our own potential,
Yeah.
we're also depriving the world of the unique contributions we could be making.
So it's almost a moral imperative to take risks, to dare to be different, to push ourselves beyond our perceived limits.
In a way, yes, because who knows what breakthroughs, what innovations, what creative solutions are waiting to be discovered when we break free from the fear of failure and embrace the unknown.
This has really been eye-opening. It's like Gage is saying, stop waiting for permission, stop waiting for the perfect conditions, just go for it.
And that's where his concept of thinking like the wealthy comes in.
Okay.
He noticed a pattern in the millionaires he interacted with.
What was that?
They weren't necessarily smarter or more talented than anyone else,
Okay.
but they had a different perspective on risk.
Okay, how so?
They saw opportunity where others saw danger.
Hmm.
They were willing to bet on themselves, to invest in their ideas, even when everyone else thought they were crazy.
It's like they had a higher tolerance for uncertainty, or maybe even saw uncertainty as a breeding ground for innovation.
Exactly. And that's a muscle we can all develop. The more we practice taking calculated risks, the more comfortable we become with uncertainty.
And the more likely we are to achieve those breakthrough moments that Gage talks about.
Yes,
The moments where we really push ourselves beyond our perceived limitations and discover what we're truly capable of.
exactly. And those moments, those experiences
Yeah.
are what truly make life rich and meaningful.
It's like that old saying, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.
I love that. It perfectly captures the essence of what Gage is trying to convey.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into risk, I'm curious, what's one piece of advice you would give to someone who's feeling stuck in that playing it safe mentality?
I'd encourage them to start small. Take one tiny step outside your comfort zone this week. It could be anything. Having a difficult conversation, signing up for a class, pitching an idea at work, just something that nudges you a little closer to that edge of uncertainty.
Because it's in those small acts of courage that we build the confidence to take on bigger risks
Yes.
and ultimately create the life we truly desire.
Beautifully said.
Feels like we've uncovered a whole new way of looking at the world, even ourselves.
It's amazing what a shift in perspective can do. And,
Yeah.
Gage doesn't just leave us with these big ideas.
Right.
He offers a real call to action.
Oh, okay.
He says, dare to be different. Dare to take a risk, because risky is the new safe.
It's funny. At first, that statement almost sounded contradictory to me. But now, after really digging into his arguments, it makes perfect sense.
It does, right. In a world that's changing faster than ever, clinging to the familiar,
Right.
to what feels safe, that can actually lead to stagnation and missed opportunities.
So how do we actually put this into practice? I mean, it's one thing to understand the concept,
Yeah.
but it's another thing entirely to actually change our behavior.
Of course. And Gage doesn't offer a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't want to. The point is for each of us to find our own way
Yeah.
to embrace risk, to challenge our own comfort zones.
So for our listener who's maybe feeling a little overwhelmed right now with
Uh-huh.
all these ideas swirling around, what's one small step they could take this week to start putting this risky is the new safe philosophy into action?
I'd say start by identifying one area in your life
Okay.
where you've been playing it too safe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a creative project you've been putting off,
Yeah.
a conversation you've been avoiding,
Right.
or a skill you've been wanting to learn.
Okay. And then?
And then just take one tiny step towards that thing. It doesn't have to be a huge leap,
Yeah.
just a small action that nudges you outside of your comfort zone.
It's like dipping your toe in the water before diving in headfirst.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
each time you do something that feels a little bit risky,
Mm-hmm.
you're building your confidence muscle, you're proving to yourself that you can handle uncertainty,
Yeah.
that you can navigate the unknown.
And who knows, that one small step could lead to something truly extraordinary.
It really could.
It could be the catalyst for unlocking your full potential, for
Absolutely.
creating a life that feels aligned with your deepest values and aspirations.
That's the beauty of embracing risk. It opens up a world of possibilities that we wouldn't even be able to imagine if we were clinging to the safety of the shore.
Well, I think we've given our listener a lot to ponder today. What's that final thought, that nugget of wisdom you want to leave them with?
Remember, risky is the new safe. Don't let fear hold you back from living a life that is truly fulfilling.
Yeah.
A life that makes a difference in the world. Take a chance. You might just surprise yourself.
All right, deep divers, that's a wrap for today. Go out there and make some waves.
Yes.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive into the world of ideas.